Hi, this is a demonstration of the Pulse survey-taking bot called Impulse. So the purpose of the bot is to take a set of surveys on the CollegePulse website, completely automated. So the main function for this is going to be pulsesurveys.py, which just runs a set of surveys. As you can see, it starts with a limit to the number of surveys it'll take. It opens a Selenium server and navigates to the CollegePulse website here. And then it continues, it checks if there are available surveys. If there are no available surveys, then it quits the bot. And then it continues through finding available surveys, opening the next available survey. And then for each question in the survey, it'll just answer the question. And it will give different responses depending on whether the question is a text response versus a numeric response versus an option button response. And then after that is finished, it will submit the survey here. It will record how much time it took to take the survey, and then it will save the survey stats to a file where, subsequently, you can look at those stats and see how many surveys the bot has taken, the date that each survey was taken, the number of points accumulated total, the total number of respondents for all the surveys taken, the total number of surveys taken by the bot, the total number of points accumulated, and then every survey that it's taken is just recorded in this JSON file. As well as, well, we can go over that later. So let me just demonstrate the survey taking process. So as you can see, it starts up the Selenium website. The first thing it does is it navigates to this other service where it generates a bunch of random sentences. It selects 75 sentences to generate. And then those 75 generated sentences will be used in every text response to make it seem like a human is answering the questions. So as you can see, it's just going through these option button responses. It'll go through, it'll submit the responses, and then it'll move on to the next survey, find the next available survey, go through each of these options, select the responses, and then once it's done, it'll just submit. So one of the barriers that I ran up against here was that often Pulse would prevent me from submitting a survey because it noticed that I was taking the surveys too quickly. My workaround for that was just to my first workaround was that I would just slow down the bot, so I would just add a bunch of weights. But I noticed that was kind of obviously inefficient and also just not very elegant. And so a better way was to just go through the survey as fast as the bot could do it. And then at the end of the survey, if I would check for the message that I had taken too much time, and then I would repeatedly go back to the previous message, wait for a second, then go back and check if the too much time or too little time notification was still there. And if that notification was still there, then I would go back again and repeatedly do that very, very, very quickly. And that I found was the fastest workaround to really quickly just get past that barrier and take a lot of surveys really quickly. So it got to the point eventually where the bot is taking these surveys at about 1/5 of the time that Pulse expects a human to take. So, it's just going to keep going. So I'll just leave it running. And meanwhile, we can look at the stats here. Oh, and also it prints out these questions. It'll print out like the number of option boxes. It'll print out each question answered. It'll print out the time taken, the surveys available, stuff like that. Just basic data as it's going through so you can diagnose. Then in the Pulse bot stats, so we have some different stats for different accounts that these surveys were taken on. The first one is going to be Pulse bot stats.json. So here is the first stats file. This stats file is for my own Dartmouth account, and so that's just going to be all the surveys taken using that account. So as you can see, this account has accumulated 9,340 points, and that's actually less than I've actually accumulated just because I started this stats file after I had already designed the bot and after it had started running. But as you can see, there's just lots of basic data on each one. So each one had this expected time, and then later on I also added this bot time. So as you can see, this is actually one really clear example. So on this workplace harassment survey, which was worth 20 points, I had this many respondents, 11 questions, and the expected time for a human to take the survey was 1 minute and 50 seconds, but the bot took it in 13 seconds. So that is 1 minute 50. So the human is taking about 8.5 times as long as the bot, or the bot is taking about 1/8 of the time of the human. So the bot is just significantly faster. And as you can see at the end, the bot just continues getting faster. Well, I'm not sure about that, but the bot did improve over time a little bit just because I made some tweaks to improve the speed. Let's go back to check on it. So yeah, it's still going. And this could run all night, just accumulating points. As you can see, we have lots and lots of points here. I also started this process of automating it every day, where I would just set a schedule in Python. There's a scheduling library where you could just trigger a process to run every day at a certain time. I thought about implementing that, but it was going to be a lot of work and also just not super necessary, because there's an absolute limit to the number of surveys that you can take on a single account. And so really taking surveys every day is not that effective. And I can just kind of wait until more surveys are posted and then just run the bot again to accumulate the latest points from the surveys. So I mentioned that there are multiple accounts, and so I just found that out just by Googling, how to create a college, a .edu email address without going to college. Just it's a simple process with lots of different resources. I don't remember which resource I used exactly, but essentially I found that the community college in California called Peralta Community College actually offered free applications, and that it pretty much accepted everyone, or it literally accepted everyone, I think. And so you could just fill out the application, and then they would give you an edu email address, and then I could just use that email address. I later found out during the meeting that during the meeting with the CTO of Pulse, that actually there's an easy way to do that workaround, which is just create an alias of your Dartmouth email or of your college email, and then it's almost impossible to identify unless unless Pulse works with the college to actually figure out which emails are aliases and which ones are original emails. So I could have done that. I just didn't think of that at the time. But that's the way to create multiple accounts, and I'm sure that there are other ways to create multiple edu addresses. So this is a security issue. I think that, and we discussed this in the meeting, but I think that the most effective ways to address this would be to create a CAPTCHA at the beginning of every survey, or maybe at the beginning of a survey taking session, and that way you would kind of amortize the costs of taking the CAPTCHA, where you only have to do it once every survey taking session. And so if you take lots and lots of surveys, then you don't have to spend very much time on the CAPTCHA. Although I don't think users are really thinking about that. They probably don't care very much about just doing a CAPTCHA at the beginning of every survey. And we also talked about the potential to instead run some possibly machine learning or just some statistical analysis to judge whether the time taken is going to be a bot versus a human. And so I have these files that can be used for that, where we have the bot time versus the expected time. And so clearly, if someone is taking about an eighth or a fifth of the time that a human should take, then that thing is likely to be a bot, or that user is likely to be a bot. Or alternatively, maybe it's just a user who's just speeding through the surveys. But in either way, you're going to want to issue some punishment or some kind of block to prevent the user from doing that repeatedly. So that seems like an effective way. And the alternative thing was to do some questions to identify whether someone's a human. So for example, to ask to identify an image, or to ask some specific question that only a college student would know, maybe even specific to the campus. So that might be the most effective way, although that's kind of also the most intrusive or annoying way, because students would have to answer those questions at the beginning of every survey. Although that might just encourage more careful thinking, or less impulsive survey taking, and improve the data integrity. I'm not sure. But yeah, so that is the bot, and feel free to email me if you have any questions about any of these files or anything. I don't remember all the implementation details. I figured a lot of this stuff it's kind of well commented, and the variable names should be pretty clear, but I don't really remember everything that I did exactly. I made this in around October of 2018. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Alrighty.